The last bastion of resistance was just hours away from falling. Humans had won. It had taken them over 1,000 years, but against all odds, they had defeated the galactic unity. Or so they thought. Chief Scientist Elegoras of the Zootak was making the final adjustments to his invention, the last glimmer of hope in a darkening universe. Before him stood a dozen members of his species, the elite of the elite. Humans had given them the derogatory nickname squids because their bodies, consisting of a dozen's interconnected tentacles, gave them a similar appearance to the maritime creatures found on Earth. They were about to give their lives in a desperate gamble, but it was the only hope for quadrillions of creatures. When Elegoras was finished, he gave them their final instructions. "Hatch brothers," he begun, "you have been briefed. Me and my team have been working on this project for the past century. It is the only hope we have left to stop and defeat the scourge that has been plaguing us for the past millennium. Once you step into this machine, each one of you will be transported to the most vulnerable time periods in human history. There you must wreak as much havoc as possible, derailing their development. Sadly, none of you will ever return. With high certainty most, if not all of us, will cease to exist. But on behalf of the trillions of creatures that had perished in this horrible war, and on behalf of the quadrillions of enslaved, we have to act." The battle cry of the 12 Zoolat was all confirmation Elegoras would ever need. He activated the time machine which would transport each Zoolat to the most vulnerable periods of human history, or at least of the time periods they knew about. The room was lit in bright, pulsating light. 1st July 64, AD Rome, Italian Peninsula. Emperor Nero Claudius Caesar Augustus Germanicus was tired. The discussion with his generals had taken far too long for his liking. All he wanted to do now was to sleep. And sleep he would. Agent Vapil was slowly crawling through the emperor's nostrils in order to reach his brain. For Zoolat were the smallest sentient creatures in the known universe, barely as large as a human ant. To compensate for their lack of physical power, nature had gifted them psionic powers. If close enough to another sentient creature's brain, they could alter and rewrite their host's mind, gaining close to total control over their actions. While the brainwashing was underway, Nero experienced one of the worst nights of his life, filled with pain, nightmares, and headaches. When he awoke, the young emperor was no longer himself but a husk, filled with hatred and insanity. He giggled, "Burn. They will all burn, 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 burn." Summer 400 AD, Kyrgyzstan, Central Asia. Yersinia pestis was a rather harmless bacterium. Agent Astaroth was about to change that. Using the best available biotechnology of his time, he altered the little creature's DNA, turning it into a deadly bioweapon specifically designed to infect and exterminate human hosts. For months he infected every animal and human he came across, spreading the newly formed disease. Perhaps it would take a century, perhaps a millennium, but eventually the bacterium would mutate and kill a large portion of unsuspecting humanity, perhaps most of them. 10th November 1918 AD, Passewalk, Germany. Adolf Hitler had enough from war. Damned be the emperor, damned be Germany, damned be the war. After the horrors he had experienced, he wanted only peace. He wanted to paint pictures and write books about the evils of war in order to help future generations prevent such senseless mayhem. Above all, he wanted to get out of this hospital and travel back to Austria. When a certain Dr. Edmund Foster came to examine him, young Hitler cared little. Things changed when he saw the doctor's eyes. There was something strange about them. Hitler started to feel unwell. He felt as if he was chalked by an invisible force that held him in place. His sight was getting blurry. He started to scream. When he awoke, he couldn't see he had turned blind. "Help!" he screamed, but no one answered. The strange doctor was gone, and Hitler was alone. "Why?" he sobbed. "Who did this to me?" he screamed. Then a foul entered his mind. The Jews, and not just them. Communists, the plutocrats, gypsies, gays. They had turned him miserable and helpless. They had done the same to Holy Germany. Oh, Holy Germany, he would avenge her. If it was the last thing of his life, he would rebuild German power and secure Germany's rightful place as ruler of the world. He would wage the greatest war in human history, a war that would burn away all the traitors, the human pest that had infected and sullied his beloved nation, all the society disintegrating communists, the fat capitalist pigs, everyone in the way of the new order. Agent Andre Alphys was satisfied. He had just turned this rather innocent fellow into a fusion reactor that would consume this world. Now who else could he influence to kill as much humans as possible? He skipped through the historical files and found another name. Ioseb Bessarionis Dzejugashvili. From the short biography available, it seemed that his human was another perfect candidate. Now where the hell was this perm he was supposed to be at? 17th April 2083 AD. High orbit over planet Earth. Captain Gazdarok of the Matayi looked down on the blue planet his battle group had discovered a week ago. The light of the burning cities and continents illuminated the dark side of the planet, bathing it in destructive beauty. An operator in front of him remarked, "Captain, we estimate that 40% of the population and 60% of all military forces had been annihilated." Gazdarok nodded. As part of the Matayi expeditionary fleet, his little force of 5 ships was tasked with exploring new frontiers. Part of the assignment was to eliminate any treaths that could become dangerous to the Matayi. Humans certainly qualified. Their bloody and violent history made them a danger to be reckoned with. Within a few decades, they could have become a dangerous foe, and while 5 ships were nowhere near enough to devastate an entire planet, he hoped that with this action he had thrown them back several decades, enough for his little battle group to return home and come back to Earth with a fleet dozens of times larger, capable of subjugating the planet. Great work, Operator Citri. Without your efforts, we would have ignored this system and never realized the danger it posed to us. Now we destroyed their development. When we return in a decade, these creatures will still be in the rebuilding phase, giving us even less opposition than they are now. Thank you, sir, Operator Citri replied. Thank you, sir, Agent Fornios replied. The real Operator Citri would have never found this mudball. 28th October 4227 AD, Circinus Galaxy. The battle cry of the 12 Zulat was all confirmation Elegoras would ever need. He activated the time machine which would transport each Zulat to the most vulnerable periods of human history, or at least of the time periods they knew about. The room was lit in bright, pulsating light. The agents were gone, but Elegoras was still here. Oh no, he thought. What went wrong? He demanded to know from his staff that was running around frantically. We don't know, sir, his chief assistant answered. According to our data, all of our agents have been transported to the various time periods they were assigned to. This is impossible, Elegoras shouted. If all of them were transported into the past, then their actions should have transpired thousands of years ago. It should— Human barrage incoming, one soldier shouted. ETI 43 seconds. It didn't work, someone screamed. We are doomed. Why are the humans this merciless? Although he had only seconds left to live, the last question coughed Elegoras' interest. Why indeed were the humans so brutal and unrelenting? When Admiral Gazdarok returned with a fleet of 100 ships to conquer Earth in the human year 2091, he expected to find a broken enemy that would surrender quickly. Instead, he found a primitive fleet of 100 human warships waiting for him. Despite superior technology, the humans turned the tide and forced Gazdarok to retreat. A few years later, humans poured out of their solar system with a fury unparalleled in the history of the universe, having reverse-engineered Matayi FTL drives. Within a few short centuries, they had subjugated their home galaxy, After that, they turned their attention to the rest of the local group. The Galactic Unity, a coalition of 7 regular and 50 dwarf galaxies, tried to stop humanity. The Circinus galaxy was the last offering resistance. It too would soon fall. Every setback, every mayhem the humans experienced throughout their long and bloody history had made them stronger, smarter, and more unrelenting. Every setback made them better. Aligoras was struck by horror, freezing his tentacles. Could it be that he had done this? Each agent sent to a critical time period in human history. Each agent tasked to devastate and kill as many humans as possible. Each event influenced, accelerating humanity's development, increasing its strength, resilience, and inventiveness. Aligoras realized that he had done this. All of this was his doing. It were his agents that had fueled human development, that had caused humanity's brutal expansion. He had been the cause, and this was the effect. The past cannot be manipulated. History cannot be changed. Because it already happened. ETI 10 seconds, someone shouted. Aligoras closed his eyes and smiled the last sarcastic smile of his life.